What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. Today, I'll be ranking all 36 NASCAR Cup Series drivers competing for the championship on where I think they will finish in the standings in 2025, from 36 to 1st. Going into the 2025 year, this is by far probably the most difficult list to rank because there's so many competitive cars and a lot of great competition for 2025. There's a lot of great competition. So anyways, let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. The driver at finishing 36 in the NASCAR Cup Series standings in 2025 is the driver of the 10 car for Kaulig Racing, Todd Gillan. After not being in the Cup Series for the last 2 seasons and being in the Truck Series in 2024 for Reck, he moves back up to the Cup Series with Kaulig Racing. Of all the drivers in the NASCAR Cup Series here, I am the least confident in Todd Gillan. Todd Gillan with Rock Racing Equipment in 2024 was not very good. Only had a couple top 10s overall, and in the few Cup starts he had in 2024, he also was not very impressive. On top of that as well, I know Kaulig Racing made some pretty big hirings throughout the offseason, but I just don't trust the Kaulig Racing Equipment to be really fast this year, and Todd Gillan is probably an average driver at best. So I don't think that Todd Gillan's really going to run well this year. I think he might get a top 10 or 2 throughout the year, but for majority of the season, I think he's going to be a back-of-the-pack driver, and I think he'll finish 36th in the standings. The driver at finishing 35th in the point standings is a driver of the 42 car for Legacy Motor Club, John Hunter Nemechek. Now, going into 2025, John Hunter Nemechek is going to have a new crew chief, and that is Travis Back from the Kaulig Racing and Trackhouse Racing stable. 2024 was a disaster for John Hunter. Did not have a great season. Actually started the year off very strong and was in contention for the playoffs in the early portion of the year and did get a couple top 10s. But going to 2025, because I don't think Travis Mack is an amazing crew chief, and Legacy, I just don't trust the moves they're making currently at the moment right now. I just don't think John Hunter is going to run very fast this year. I think he might get a couple top 10s throughout the year, but I really don't think that Legacy is in a really great position currently at the moment. I unfortunately do think that John Hunter is not going to run well, and I sadly think he will struggle with this team and might be out of a ride at the end of the year if he doesn't really turn the corner, which I don't think is going to happen in 25. The driver at finishing 34th in the standings in 2025 is a driver of the 51 car for Reck Racing, Cory LaJoie. We do think Cory LaJoie is most likely going to be the driver of the seat for 2025. Now, Cory LaJoie had a very bad season overall in 2024, had a lot of struggling performances, and did not run that great. I do think with Rick Ware not having the pressure, I think he will run a little better than he did with Spire. And I think he might get a couple top 20s, but he's not going to have Chris Lawson as a crew chief this year, and we'll have a different crew chief. I'm thinking Billy Plorty, who crew chief the 15 car, is most likely going to be the crew chief for this car this upcoming season. I just don't think Cory LaJoie is going to run amazing. I think there will be some good performances, and I'm looking at Super Speedways the most likely thing, but I also think he won't be wrecking a lot of cars like he did in 2024, which I think will be a positive for Cory LaJoie as a whole. So I think there definitely will be some struggles for sure this upcoming season, but I think LaJoie will run better than some drivers have in this car, but he won't be as good as Justin Elliott did behind the wheel of the C in 2025. The driver at finishing 33rd in the NASCAR Cup Series standings in 2025 is the driver of the 3 car for Richard Childress Racing, Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon will have a new crew chief in 2025, and that is going to be Richard Boswell, who crew chief for Chase Briscoe last year. Austin Dillon, the last 2 years, outside of picking up a very controversial win at Richmond, has been extremely mediocre and has not been a major performer. And I think that is going to continue in 2025. Unfortunately, I don't think Richard Boswell is going to be able to fix Austin Dillon. The last years have been a struggle, and what's crazy is just 3 years ago, Austin Dillon was a borderline playoff contender. And I don't think that's going to happen this year, unfortunately. I think Austin Dillon will continue to struggle like he's had the last couple of years, plus the 32 drivers ahead of him in the standings that I have for this upcoming year, I think are in a much better position. So I think, unfortunately, Austin Dillon is going to struggle quite a bit in 2025 and not have the pace and speed to contend. I think that Austin Dillon finishes 33rd in the NASCAR Cup Series standings in 2025. The driver at finishing 32nd in the NASCAR Cup standings in 2025 is a driver of the 43 car for Legacy Motor Club, Erik Jones. Erik Jones is in a very similar position to John Hunter Nemechek. Now, to be fair to him, he unfortunately did get injured in the early portion of the season at Talladega and was in playoff contention the early portion of the year. But even with that, he still had a bad year. He only scored 1 or 2 top 10s overall. I think that coming at Pocono, where I think he finished in 10th, and just really never had the pace and speed throughout the year. And I think the same mediocrity is going to continue in 2025. I just don't have any confidence in Erik Jones. The only tracks that I feel like he may have a chance to go to victory lane are the Southern 500 and the Darlington races, and probably super speedways, because Erik Jones is a pretty solid super speedway racer. Outside of that, I think it's going to be a big struggle this year. There could be some questions about his future. I know he signed through 2026, but Danny's got to turn it around. Otherwise, Erik Jones may not have a long-term future in the sport. I think he will struggle a little bit this upcoming year. The driver finishing 31st in the NASCAR Cup Series standings in 2025 is the driver of the 41 car for Haas factory team, Cole Custer. Cole Custer going back up to the Cup Series for the first time full-time since 2022. Now, since the last time Cole Custer was there, of course, he won an Xfinity Series Championship in 2023 and made the championship for 2024, finishing inside the top 5 in the final race. Cole Custer, I think, is going to be a better driver overall moving up to the Cup Series. And yes, Haas factory team technically will be a 4th RFKC, but I'm not confident in this organization. I'm just really not going into this year. Now, long term, I think this team does have a lot of potential. With them, yes, they're going to be getting help from RFK, but I just don't trust them this upcoming season. I think that you'll see Cole Custer has some decent performances throughout the year, and I look for him to be very strong in super speedway tracks, maybe qualifying at some other tracks really, really well, but for majority of the year, I think he will struggle, but have a couple good runs, but I do think he'll finish in 31st in the standings by the end of the year, but a couple top 10s are very, very likely. The driver finishing 30th overall in the standings in 2025 is the driver of the 47 car for Hayek Motorsports, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Going to 2025, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is going to be going to this rebranded team, which of course was JTG Doherty Racing last year. Now, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. had an okay year, but not a great year overall. He did get that win at Talladega Super Speedway, but this team took a major step back in 2024 from where they were in 2023. I think Stenhouse will be strong as super speedways and may have a couple good runs throughout the year, but I expect this team to be in the back of the pack a lot of the year on performance. I think they're going to be in the bottom half for a majority of events. I think a couple top 10s are very, very likely for Stenhouse, but I think for the most part, there will be some struggles throughout the year for this team. I'm looking for this team to have some, like I said, some good runs at times, but I think that this isn't going to be the best year for the team with them being rebranded. I think your best chance to win is super speedway. I think for most of the year, they'll be running in the second half of the standings in 2025. The driver finishing 29th in the standings in 2025 is a driver 35 car for 2311 Racing, Riley Herbst. Now, Riley Herbst is joining the Cup Series full-time with 2311 Racing in a 3rd charter car for the team and organization. Look, Riley Herbst had a solid year in NASCAR Xfinity Series competition where he did get 2 victories, including at Phoenix in a very dominating event, which is overshadowed by Justin Allgaier's championship win. Riley Herbst, I think, is improved as a driver, but I just don't have confidence in this 3rd team. I think there's going to be some issues throughout the year for Riley. I do think Riley will actually really help the Super Speedway program for Toyotas. I think Riley is a very underrated Super Speedway racer, but I do think that Riley Herbst's best chance to win will come at a Super Speedway. I think a lot of you will be running outside the top 20, maybe get some top 20s and maybe a couple occasional top 10s throughout the year, but we all know why he's at this organization most likely, and that is because he's bringing sponsorship and funding. We could have seen Corey Heim behind the wheel of the C at one point, but Riley Herbst is getting the C. I think there'll be a little bit of struggles for sure, but I do think he will at least be top 30 at the standings at the end of the year. The driver finishing 28th in the NASCAR Cup standings in 2025 is the driver to 16 car for Colleague Racing, AJ Allmendinger. This is definitely going to be controversial because the last couple times AJ has been in Cup, he's ran very, very well. Hear me out though. AJ Allmendinger, yes, I think will be very fast at super speedways, be really strong at road courses, and might be really good at Homestead Miami Speedway as well early in the year where he usually runs top 5 and top 10 for whatever reason. The problem is I don't trust the Colleague Racing equipment. I know they brought Ty Norris in very recently, but I just don't think this team has the overall pace and speed. Now, there will be some chemistry between AJ Allmendinger and Trent Owens because they previously worked together at Hayek Motorsports when it was JTG Doherty Racing. But I just think outside of the super speedways and the road courses, I think AJ is going to struggle a lot this year because I just don't think the Colleague Racing equipment is going to be up to snuff and up to par. His best chance are going to be at those 2 types of tracks to go to victory lane. But I think for the most part, AJ is not going to have the pace and speed he contend. I think he finishes back in the bottom of the standings by the end of the year. The driver finishing 27th in the NASCAR Cup standings in 2025 is the driver of the 4 car for Farmer Motorsports, Noah Gragson. Noah Gragson joining this team after being at Stewart-Haas Racing in 2024 after the team shut down. Noah Gragson had some really strong runs in 2024, especially early in the season. And you would think I'd be predicting him to be a guy that could be a playoff contender with this team being a top tier 1 support. I think Noah's going to have some solid runs, no question on that. But I think because of how competitive the field is going to be this year, I think it's going to be really tough for him to be like a top 10 or top 15 guy extremely consistently. I do think he'll get some top 10s, and I think there could be a chance he wins a super speedway race or wins a track at a bigger track or even a road course down the road, because their road course program has gotten a lot better at Front Row since Michael McDowell was there for many, many years. But I think Gragson will definitely have a little bit of work to do this year. I don't think he's going to be like a bad by any stretch of imagination. I don't think he's going to be great, but I think he'll have some solid and pretty good runs with this team in 2025, but finishes in the second half of the standings. The driver at finishing 26th in the NASCAR Cup Series standings in 2025 is a driver to 38 car for Front Row Motorsports, Zay Smith. Well, this has not been officially announced. We all know at this point that Zay Smith is going to be joining Front Row this upcoming season. Now, Zay Smith in 2024 had a Jekyll and Hyde year. He started off really, really bad, and then in the second half of the year, he really came in his own and ran extremely well. That's why he's earned a ride at Front Row and unfortunately not being with Trackhouse anymore. I think that Zay Smith will have some pretty solid runs, actually. In the second half of the year, he had one of the better average finishes. My big concern is going to be the fact this team is expanding to a 3-car operation. And yes, they are getting Tier 1 support, but sometimes when organizations and teams expand, they don't run amazing. And I think it'll be a little bit of a down year in performance for a couple of the drivers at Front Row. Still, I think Zay will have some good runs throughout the year, some top 10s especially, but I think because of how competitive the field is going to be this year, I do think there'll be some struggles throughout the 2025 year. And I think that Zay will have a little bit of work to do, but we'll see him at Front Row, and I think he could be an underdog to definitely make the playoffs in 2025. The driver at finishing 25th in the NASCAR Cup Series standings in 2025 is a driver of the 21 car for the Wood brothers, Josh Berry. Josh Berry replacing Harrison Burton, who is going back down to NASCAR Xfinity Series competition to replace Hailie Deegan at AM Racing. Now, when you look at Wood brothers, the last couple years of Harrison Burton, they have really, really struggled. They are definitely getting a better driver in this car. However, I don't think Josh Berry is going to take this team to a playoff contending level. However, I think this will be the best year the Wood brothers have had since when Matt DiBenedetto was driving for the team back in 2021 before he got let go at the end of the year for Harrison to come in. I think Josh will be an underdog at super speedways. He actually was kind of underrated super speedways, and I think will be really solid at short tracks as well. I look for him to double the top 10s that Harrison had, and I think he could get around maybe 10 top 10s by the end of the year potentially, but I think his best chance is going to come at some of those little smaller tracks, and maybe the super speedways as well. I think he runs better with the new crew chief, but it's not going to be an extravagant year for him in 2025. The driver at finishing 24th in the NASCAR Cup standings in 2025 is a driver 7 car for Spire Motorsports, Justin Haley. Justin Haley, I think, will have an okay season, and of course, he will have Ronnie Childers as a crew chief in 2025. I think Justin Haley is a talented driver, and I think Spire Motorsports, yes, them being a Tier 1 team, is going to help the team. And I think for the first time in the team's history, they'll have 3 cars in the top 25 in the standings. The problem is the caliber of competition is super, super tough, and I do think that Ronnie Childers will lead Justin Haley to have the best position that 7 has had in the standings probably they've ever had. The issue I have with Justin Haley is I don't know if he's going to be able to take that next major level to be a playoff contender just yet. I think he'll have some good runs for sure. There's no denying that, and maybe in the future he could be in a Hendrick Motorsports car. But I think as of right now, I'm looking for Justin Haley to be very solid. I think he's not going to be amazing by any stretch of imagination, but I think he'll have a solid year, and I think he definitely will be inside the top 25 in points and have some strong and good performances throughout the year, especially at Super Speedways, which you know that Justin Haley is a pretty dang good Super Speedway racer. The driver at finishing 23rd in the NASCAR Cup Series standings in 2025 is a driver 71 car for Spire Motorsports, Michael McDowell. Michael McDowell is joining Spire Motorsports, leaving Front Row Motorsports after being with them since 2018. And of course, in 2024, Michael McDowell had a dominant year on winning poles. Now, Michael McDowell's performance, I think, is going to be very similar to how Zay Smith was at the end of 2024. He had a lot of great runs at the end of the year, that being Zane, and I think McDowell might improve on what he did at Front Row. The thing for McDowell is I think he'll be very strong at road courses and really help the road course program because I think Spire has kind of struggled on road courses at times over the last couple of years, though they did have a really strong run at Watkins Glen recently. I think McDowell will be fast at times throughout the year, good at super speedways, and I think McDowell could be an underdog to make the playoffs this year. But overall, I think there will be some struggles at times with the new team being over there. I think it's going to take time to get that chemistry in. But I think for McDowell, by the end of the year, he will be a solid top 10, top 15 threat on a week-by-week basis. I think a top 25 in the standings should be the goal for the end of the year. The driver finishing 22nd in the NASCAR Cup Series standings in 2025 is the driver of the 2 car for Team Penske, Austin Cindric. Austin Cindric, I think, is someone that's really hard to kind of predict where he is going to usually be because Cindric the last couple of years has not been very, very good. His rookie year was really, really strong, and he did get a win in 2024, but for a majority of the year, he was around that 20th to 22nd range for a majority of the year, and I think that's where he is going to be in the standings. I think he'll be really good at super speedways this year. I think he will have some strong runs at other tracks, like short tracks as well, but I think for a lot of the year and the season, I think it's going to be a little bit of an uphill swing. He's not someone that's really emerged at this point. I don't think he's going to make the playoffs. I think it's going to be tough for him to be that contender we're really, really looking for going into the next year. I think it's going to be hard for him to be a championship contender as of now. I think he will finish 22nd because I just don't think he'll have the pace and speed to be a major threat and contender in 2025. The driver finishing 21st in the NASCAR Cup Series standings in 2025 is the driver of the 99 car for Trackhouse Racing, Daniel Suarez. This is a make-or-break year for Daniel Suarez at Trackhouse Racing, in my opinion. He just signed a 1-year extension with this team. We'll have Max Swiderski, I believe, as a crew chief once again. And I think that there's a very good chance he's not going to be back with his team in 2026. I just don't have confidence in Daniel Suarez compared to his 2 teammates this upcoming year. This is a team that I just have not seen a really big steps we're really needing at this point. The 99 team's been extremely mediocre. Yes, he got that win in Atlanta. He's had some good runs at some tracks. And I think Suarez could have some good runs. There's no denying it. I think there will be chances for him to run up front throughout the year. But I think it's going to be very, very tough for Suarez to be a major playoff contender. I think there are times he will be a playoff threat and contender. But I think that Daniel Suarez is going to have some struggles for sure. I don't see him back with his team in 2026 at this point if he doesn't make the playoffs. And I think that Connor Zilisch most likely is going to get that seat at the team. I think there definitely will be some struggles in this car for him in 2025. The driver finishing 20th in the NASCAR Cup Series standings in 2025 is a driver to 60 car for RFK Racing, Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece is joining RFK Racing after being with Stewart-Haas Racing the last 2 years, which weren't very, very good. But I do think that Ryan Preece is going to get his first real opportunity in Cup competition he has had. Now, I do not expect Ryan Preece to be as strong as Chris Buescher or Brad Keselowski because it's a third full-time team. However, I think Ryan Preece will have a career year. I think he will be a borderline playoff contender. I think he'll score some top 5s, quite a few top 10s throughout the year, and I think he will be in the playoff conversation throughout the 2025 season. I just think he's going to miss by a certain amount of points. I think it's actually going to be really close for him making it or not making it into the playoffs, but I think there will, like I said, be some decent struggles for him throughout the 2025 year, but I also think Ryan Preece is going to show his potential, get another contract extension more than likely with this team, to stick around for a couple years. I think Ryan Preece will have a pretty solid year in this car in 2025 and finish 20th in the points. The driver finishing 19th in the NASCAR Cup standings in 2025 is a driver to 34 car for Front Row Motorsports, Todd Gillan. Todd Gillan in 2024 had a very impressive season. There were times where he was in the top 20 in the standings. It wasn't just for one race, it was for a couple races. And had a stretch of times where he's inside the top 20 and also led a lot of laps throughout the year. He'll be going to the flagship number 34 car. And not only that, is going to have Chris Larson as a crew chief. Chris Lawson's won championships in trucks with Zay Smith and also brought that 51 car up front a lot more closer. I think that Todd Gillan is going to have a career year. I do think he's got chances to win some super speedway races. I think he will for sure be the strongest front row car this upcoming year. And he could be also really strong at the road courses as well. He's been underrated at those types of tracks in recent years. He ran really good in 22 at those tracks. In the last years, he's improved every single year. He's becoming a very solid driver in Cup. And I do think you will see Todd Gillan have some strong pace and speed and show some really good strength and really good speed throughout 2025. I think he just misses the playoffs, but I think he finishes 19th in the points. The driver finishing 18th in the NASCAR Cup standings in 2025 is a driver to 77 car for Spire Motorsports, Carson Osar. Carson Osar was very impressive in 2024. Was one of the few young drivers that really has impressed me in competition over the last 2 years and took that 77 car to places where it wasn't with Todd Gillan. And he was a borderline playoff contender in the early portion of the year, which led him to winning the Rookie of the Year honors. Now, I don't think that Carson Osar is going to make the playoffs. I think he's just barely going to miss it this upcoming year, but I think it's going to be within that 15 to 20 point range at best. I think it's going to be very close close for him making it or not making it. Because I think Carson could win a race before the end of this upcoming year and win in a sophomore season, which is very rare for sophomore drivers to do nowadays. I think Carson will show potential. I think he'll clean up a lot of mistakes as he does get a little bit older, because next year he will be 22 years of age. I think he'll show a lot more promise in that area. And I think it's going to be a solid year for Carson Osar at this team. I look for him to show some really good speed throughout 2025, but just barely missed the playoffs. The driver finishing 17th in the NASCAR Cup Series standings in 2025 is a driver of 22 car for Team Penske, Joey Logano. This is going to be super controversial because Joey Logano is coming into this year as a defending champion. I think for the first time, though, since 2012, when Brad Keselowski won the championship in 2012 and then missed the playoffs in 2013, I think Logano's going to miss the playoffs this year. Every odd year, we usually see drivers like him not run as strong. He's usually a person that's really strong in the even years. And Joey Logano, yes, he won 4 races in 2024, but you look at his other numbers, he had the least amount of top 5s he's had since joining Penske. He's had the least amount of top 10s since when he joined Penske. I just don't see Logano being a championship contender this upcoming year, and I think it's going to be a struggle. A lot of times you see the championship hangover come into play, and I think Logano is going to have a true championship hangover this upcoming season. I think he's going to almost make it. I think he will win a race, but I think Logano is going to definitely have some struggles throughout 2025. The driver finishing 16th in the NASCAR Cup Series standings in 2025 is a driver of the A car for Richard Childress Racing, Kyle Busch. I think Kyle Busch is going to have a slight bounce back season in 2025, but not an amazing bounce back year. I'm looking for him to be as strong as he was in the early portion of 2022. I also think he will win a race. Most likely the Daytona 500 is where I think he's going to go to victory lane. I think that Kyle Busch and Randall Burnett are going to start off the year very, very strong and show a little bit more consistency. But I don't think Kyle Busch is going to be a winning contender on a week-by-week basis, where I think he'd be a championship threat and contender. I think he will make the playoffs just barely, but if he isn't a championship threat, I could also see him leaving Richard Childress Racing. He is going into this upcoming season as a driver who's on the borderline of being a free agent or not at this point. I think he will have some good runs definitely throughout the year, but there's definitely some things he will have to do, and I think there's a little bit of work for him to do this upcoming year, but I do think Kyle Busch will show a little bit of progress this year, and I think he'll win and get back to victory lane, maybe like this at Daytona 500, but I think he'll definitely do some things and some potential to not be as great this upcoming year. The driver finishing 15th in the NASCAR Cup standings in 2025 is a driver of the 88 car for Trackhouse Racing, Shane Van Gisbergen. Shane Van Gisbergen is moving up to the NASCAR Cup Series full-time after running full-time in Xfinity competition and making it to the round of 12 in the playoffs and winning 3 races. He is moving up after a very solid rookie year in NASCAR Xfinity competition. Now, this will also be bold for Shane Van Gisbergen to be this far up in the standings. You have to remember, though, there's a lot of road courses. There's like 6 or 7 road courses on the schedule this year, and we know that Shane Van Gisbergen is going to be one of the favorites, if not the favorite, to win a lot of these road course races throughout the year. On top of that as well, I think as the year progresses and goes on, he will get better as a driver in Cup competition. Near the end of the year, he was starting to figure it out. At Martinsville, he got himself a top 15 finish and showed a lot of speed at times on some of these tracks as well, and just got better as a driver on the track. I think by the end of the year, he will be a consistent top 15 driver, and I think he'll show some promise. I don't think he makes it past the round of 16 in the playoffs at this point, but I do think that Shane Van Gisbergen will be pretty consistent and pretty strong with the Trackhouse Racing organization in 2025. The driver finishing 14th in the NASCAR Cup standings in 2025 is a driver of the 54 car for Joe Gibbs Racing, Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs is coming off of having a Jekyll and Hyde season in 2024. Ty Gibbs started off very, very good. Contended for multiple wins. Led the most laps at Bristol. One of the fastest cars early in the year. The second half of the year was a much different story. Engine failures, mechanical failures, and crashes throughout the second half of the season. Now, I do think with the new crew chief, that being Tyler Allen, I think he will improve on his second half stats, but not by much. I think he will get his first career win, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets to the round of 12, because I remember this is based on where I think you're going to finish on throughout the whole entire season. I think that Ty Gibbs will get a win for sure. I think he'll show some promise, but I don't think he's going to be that championship caliber driver at this time. I think in the near future he will be a championship caliber driver, and I think he does have potential to really be that young driver that can do it, but I think there's definitely some work he has to do definitely. I think he'll be solid definitely for sure, but not spectacular, especially if having a new crew chief, but I think he'll be top 15 in the standings by the end of this upcoming year and season. The driver finishing 13th in the NASCAR Cup Series standings in 2025 is a driver of the 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing, Chase Brisco. Chase Brisco is joining Joe Gibbs Racing in the upcoming season after being with Suarez Racing and will replace Martin Truex Jr. This 19 car is probably one of the more intriguing combinations we have going into the upcoming season. I think Chase Brisco has never really been in a top-level car and showed a lot of promise with Suarez Racing. There's a lot of questions about the synergy between Chase Brisco and James Small coming into the year. Now, James Small has publicly said that he's really excited to work with Brisco. I think Brisco will have a career year in Cup competition, but I don't think he'll be a championship caliber driver. I think he'll show some promise throughout the year, absolutely, but I do think there's some things he'll have to do to really prove it. I think as time goes on with him at this team, I think he will emerge as a championship contender, but you're going to have the first year jitters with this program. I think Brisco will, like I said, have some good and solid and strong runs at times, but I think there's some work for him to do. I think he'll finish in the top 15 of the standings this upcoming year and season. The driver finishing 12th in the NASCAR Cup standings in 2025 is a driver of the 23 car for 23XI Racing, Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace, after making it in 2023 and having a very solid year, unfortunately ended up missing the NASCAR Cup class in 2024. Despite the fact he had a career year in statistics where he scored double-digit top 10s and scored 6 or 7 top 5s throughout the season. I think that Bubba Wallace is due for a bounce-back year, and he'll also have a new crew chief in 2025, that being Charles Deneke, who worked extremely well with Christian Eckes in NASCAR's Xfinity Series competition. I think Bubba Wallace is going to have his best Cup season up to this point. I think he will win his first race in 2022 at Kansas. I think he will potentially make the round of 12 this upcoming year. And I think Bubba will score almost double-digit top 5s, and maybe 16 or 17 top 10s. Every year statistically, Bubba Wallace has gotten stronger and stronger and stronger. And I think it's only going to get better for him. I think it's going to be a solid year. He's got to also sign that multi-year contract, which will help him for sure. I think it's going to be a pretty good and pretty strong year for Bubba. I think he will finish inside the top 12 and finish 12th in the standings in 2025. The driver finishing 11th in the NASCAR Cup standings in 2025 is a driver 17 car for RFK Racing, Chris Buescher. Chris Buescher had a very solid year in 2025, but unfortunately, because there were so many winners this past year, he did not make the playoffs. I think he will bounce back for sure and make the playoffs. He's also working with the same group, that being Scott Graves as a crew chief once again. And I look for Chris Buescher to be an underdog for the championship this year. I think RFK is getting stronger and stronger the last couple of years. And I think that Chris Buescher has shown so much progress over the last 2 years. Like I said, yes, he did miss the playoffs, but he got a win at Watkins Glen. And I think that he will definitely make the playoffs. And I think he'll get a lot of top 10s. I think he'll show, like I said, some really strong promise. I think he'll have one of the better average finishes in the field without question and without worrying about it. I think it's going to be a good year this upcoming year. And I look for Chris Buescher in the 17 team to be really good at super speedways and a lot of other types of tracks, including road courses, which could lead drivers like Ryan Preece and Brad Keselowski running a lot better at those types of tracks in the 2025 season. The driver finishing 10th in the NASCAR Cup standings in 2025 is the driver to 6th car for RFK Racing, Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski in 2024 had his best statistical season since 2021 when he drove for Team Penske. He also got his first win since 2021 at Talladega Superspeedway, that coming at Darlington in 2024. Now going into 2025, I'm looking for Brad to be stronger. He is going to have Jeremy Bullins as a crew chief. And the last time these two worked together, Brad, I believe, made it to the round of 8. I think Brad has a really good chance of making the round of 8 this year, and I think he could win a couple races throughout the year. Jeremy Bullins is a very solid crew chief. He's won a lot of races, a lot of different drivers, including Brad, and these two have a really good working relationship, and working with the RFK group is really going to help Brad in a pretty big way, and really help Jeremy Bullins as well to get that synergy back. I'm looking for Brad to show some really strong pace and really strong speed. And I think top 10 of the standings will definitely happen. I think there's a good chance he will make the round of 8. But at the end of the year, because they kind of incorporate everyone from 5th to 16th with the standings they have, I think that Brad will get top 10 for sure in 2025. The driver finishing 9th in the NASCAR Cup standings in 2025 is a driver of the 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing, Denny Hamlin. Now, Denny Hamlin, the last 2 years with Chris Gabehart, they've worked together very, very well. The issue is, Denny Hamlin will not have Chris Gabehart as a crew chief as Chris Gabehart moves to being the competition director of the program this upcoming season. Now, Denny Hamlin also, you have to think about the age. I think Hamlin's also going to be consistent. I think he'll show some consistency. And yes, I think he'll win a few races. But Chris Gale is not a top-level crew chief, in my opinion. He really didn't do much with Kyle Busch at times. He didn't really do that great with Ty Gibbs and Eric Jones, especially in Cup competition. He did great in Xfinity competition, but a lot of that coming from Kyle Busch. But he never really was a guy that could exceed and do amazing. So Denny, I think, will have a little bit of a down year in performance. I think there's a very good chance he won't make it past the round of 12, unfortunately, this year. And I think there's a really good chance Denny also will retire and focus on being a full-time owner this upcoming year. I think Denny will show some stuff, get a couple victories, but for most of the year, it's going to be hard for him to be a major threat. I think he will finish ninth in the Cup standings in 2025. The driver finishing 8th in the NASCAR Cup standings in 2025 is the driver of the 48 car for Hendrick Motorsports, Alex Bowman. Alex Bowman was very underrated in 2024. Yes, he didn't lead a lot of laps. Yes, he didn't win a lot of races, but he was one of the most consistent drivers. And near the end of the year, he showed flashes of 2020. And we all remember it from 2020 from the consistency. 2021 then ended up being one of his better years as he picked up 4 victories that year. I don't think Bowman is going to win a lot of races. I think 1 or 2 is the most likely thing. But I think he's going to be super, super consistent to where he'll be in the top 10 in the points. I think he's someone that could be an underdog for the regular season championship this year. And I look for this number 48 team to show some really impressive flair and show some really impressive speed this year. Blake Harris and Alex Bowman have really gotten it together. They figured it out. I think it's going to be a good year for this team. I think that Alex Bowman will have the pace and speed to be a major threat and serious contender. I think Alex Bowman will be top 10 in the points and finish 8th in the overall standings in 2025 once again. The driver finishing 7th in the NASCAR Cup standings in 2025 is the driver of the 1 car for Trackhouse Racing, Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain did not have a fantastic year in 2024 because he did make a lot of mistakes, but he also did get a win near the end of the season, and that was at Kansas Speedway. I think that Ross Chastain will be an underdog for the championship in 2025. I think there was a lot of promise and there was a lot of growth with this organization and with this team as well as the year did go on at points. And I think that Chastain did back off some of the overall aggression. I think 2025 is going to be a big bounce back year for Chastain. I really think there's going to be a couple wins for him. I think he will get closer to getting to that 10 career win total. He's got 5 currently at the moment. I think he does get a couple victories this year. And I think he definitely will be a championship 4 threat and a round of 8 threat as well. I don't think he's going to make the championship 4, unfortunately, this upcoming year and season, but I think it is going to be a solid year for the number 1 team. He's also expected to sign a contract extension more than likely with this program for 2025. I think it'll be good. I don't think he's going to be absolutely amazing, but I think it'll be very, very good and show some great stuff in 2025. The driver finishing 6th in the NASCAR Cup Series standings in 2025 is a driver of the 24 car for Hendrick Motorsports, William Byron. William Byron, the last 2 years, has made the championship 4. And William Byron has been very, very good. But from 2023 to 2024, he did take a step backwards. He went from having 6 wins to having a 3-win season, and his last win actually came very early in the year at Circuit of the Americas in Martinsville as well, near the middle portion of the season. But in the summer, he really, really struggled. And I think Byron may run very similar to that, except I think he will show a little more speed in the summer because I think that's where he might get his first win. I also think William Byron is only going to win a race or 2 this upcoming year, but I think he's going to be a little more consistent, especially in the middle stretch of the year. I think he will be a championship contender, and I think he'll show a lot of promise throughout the 2025 season. I just don't think he's going to have enough this upcoming season to make the championship 4. I think he'll be a borderline championship contender. I think he's going to be right on the board of being in the Final 4, but I think there will be definitely a little bit of work to do from the number 24 team, but I think he will finish inside the top 5 and finish in 6th in the standings by the end of the season in the 2025 NASCAR Cup year. The driver finishing 5th in the NASCAR Cup standings in 2025 is the driver of the 45 car for 2311 Racing, Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick was one of the strongest drivers in 2024. One of the few guys that kept up with Kyle Larson throughout the season. And I think there'll be a lot of the similar stuff to that in 2025. However, unlike 2024, Tyler Reddick will not make the championship 4. But I think he barely misses it. Tyler Reddick is not going to have homestead at Miami Speedway in that round. There's a lot of flatter ovals, and while Reddick was solid at flatter ovals, he wasn't absolutely amazing at those tracks. And the 4 drivers I have ahead of him going into this year, I think are better at those types of tracks, especially that we're going to in the final rounds. I think he'll be very, very good. There's no denying that. I think Reddick just won't be as good as he was in 2024. I look for him to be very similar to 2023, where he will be a championship contender and show a lot of promise and definitely a lot of potential this year. I think he finishes inside the top 5. I think he just missed out on the championship 4, but I think he definitely makes the round of 8 and finishes 5th in the NASCAR Cup standings in 2025. The driver finishing 4th in the NASCAR Cup standings in 2025 is a driver of the 9 car for Hendrick Motorsports, Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott was very underrated in 2024. Granted, he did not win a lot of races, only got 1 win, and that was at Texas. However, he was a championship contender throughout the whole entire season. He got that win at Texas and had the best average finish of any driver in the field. And near the end of the season, I saw a lot of that speed he had in 2022 really coming back. He led a lot of laps. He could have won a few races like at Homestead and Martinsville, and was very fast at Vegas before he got taken out in that big wreck with Tyler Reddick. I think Chase will get back to the championship for the first time since 2022, and I think the LA will have the speed to contend and be a major championship threat and serious contender this year. It's going to be a great year for him, in my opinion. I think Chase will get at least 2 or 3 victories, and I could see him having a 4 to 5 win season and really getting back higher up in the wins column for sure. I think Chase Elliott will definitely reach 20 career wins and finish 4th in the standings at the end of the year in 2025. The driver finishing 3rd in the NASCAR Cup standings in 2025 is a driver of the 20 car for Joe Gibbs Racing, Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell was one of the few guys all year that kept up with Kyle Larson and was very, very strong, especially in the middle portion of this season. Unfortunately, because of some crazy stuff that happened at Martinsville, he didn't make the championship 4. But I look for Bell to be the strongest Joe Gibbs Racing driver as well, by a pretty wide margin too, because this 20 team is really the only team that really didn't make any changes this year on any fronts. And you need that synergy to work really, really good. And I think there's a lot of synergy between the 20 team currently at the moment. I look for Bell to win a couple races. I don't think Chris Bell is going to win 5 to 10 races, but I think Bell will be a major championship contender. He's always consistent, he's always up front, and is always very, very strong on a week-by-week basis. He keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger as a driver too. He will get a couple wins definitely. I think he will for sure make the championship 4, have the pace and speed to contend. He could get redemption in Vegas like he had. He's had really good speed at that track in recent times. I look for Christopher Bell to be a major championship threat and finish 3rd at the standings at the end of the year. The driver finishing 2nd in the NASCAR Cup standings in 2025 is a driver of the 5 car for Hendrick Motorsports, Kyle Larson. This is the first time since I did these rankings a few years ago where I've not had Kyle Larson finishing 1st in the championship going into the year. Kyle Larson, I think, will be the fastest overall driver throughout the year, and I think, like he's done the last couple years, he will be the winningest driver. I think he will have the pace and speed to contend, but we have to remember that we're going to Phoenix for the championship once again, and Team Penske has been the strongest team at this track. Hendrick's shown some good speed, and Kyle Larson had really strong speed at Phoenix the last time we were there, but he didn't have the speed to do that in 2023. I think he does make the championship 4, but just like because of how strong Penske has been, I don't think Kyle Larson will have enough to win the championship. I think he comes runner-up in the season. I think it's going to be a great year for Kyle Larson, especially since he's competing in the Indy 500 once again. I think he won't have issues this time around, but I think Larson just will not have enough to win the championship, but I think he'll finish 2nd in the NASCAR Cup standings in 2025 and still will get the most wins at around 6 or 7 by the end of the year. The driver who had finishing 1st and winning the championship in 2025 is the driver of the 12th car for Team Penske, Ryan Blaney. Going into this year, Ryan Blaney is probably the championship favorite for a pretty big reason. It all comes down to the track we're going to, and that is Phoenix for the championship. Team Penske has got this track figured out, and Ryan Blaney has been the strongest driver at the track. And I think, especially since NASCAR, I don't think is going to change how they do the final race, which is stupid, by the way, Penske's going to continue dominating, and Ryan Blaney is going to win the title. But I think Blaney will be one of the more consistent guys too. Let's not get it twisted. I think Blaney is going to be fast this year. I think he will have a car capable of winning quite a few races. And I look for the 12 team to be very, very good. There's a lot of synergy. There's a lot of greatness going on with the number 12 team. I think it's going to be a really strong and great year for Ryan Blaney. He's going to win a lot of races. I would think he will have his winningest season in Cup competition ever. And I look for Blaney to be going up there and maybe getting his second title. I think he will do it. I think he'll have a fast enough car to be a major threat and contender for sure. I think that Ryan Blaney will be your NASCAR Cup champion in 2025 and finish first in the NASCAR Cup Series standings this upcoming year. So, that is going to be it for the driver rankings where I think everyone finished in the standings in 2025. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Links description below that, and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. Where do you think all the drivers are going to finish in 2025 in the standings? And if you think I'm wrong in some of these, let me know in the comments below and tell me where you think they're going to rank. Let me know them in the comments below. There probably won't be any more videos on the channel unless there's some major news that breaks. Then on Friday, we'll have a massive NASCAR news video discussing news over the course of the last couple days. Then on Saturday, we're probably going to have Truck Series plat predictions on the channel. We may do an updated look at the Daytona 500 entry list. Monday, I may be doing a look at the Xfinity Series lineup potentially. There might be some other content drop for the end of the year. And we'll do the thank you video for 2024 at the end. We also will have the goals video for 2025. And I should have video going up on my second channel very, very soon as well. And then, of course, I will have videos on people like Haley Dean, Connor Zilic, Kyle Busch, all this stuff, Carl Edwards, Kurt Busch, Shane Van Gisbergen, all this stuff, Chandler Smith, Eric Almirola, you know it, Sam Mayer, Sheldon Creed, all this stuff we'll talk about here on the channel as we get close to the start of the year. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.